Before I commence my speech, I would like to convey the best wishes to Hemalambi Samvatsara through you to all the honorable members of this House. I thank you, Madam Speaker, for the opportunity given to me to speak on a very important and to be the game changer, transformative reform measure which is being discussed today on this floor of the. It's unprecedented. It is historical. And there are as many as 4 bills before today and 1 bill to be passed by the respective legislatures. In fact, this was an important game changer enactment which was intended by the UPA government. Of course, should have been implemented at that time, and some of the opposition parties at that time felt that it has to be halted. I don't want to name, anybody can take that credit. Exactly. The question is, should have the select committee headed by senior member of the BJP, Sri Yashwant Sinha, headed that select committee, finance committee, consisting of Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha members, and they presented the report in 2011. Quite promptly, the then UPA government came out with legislation. It was halted, again for the best reasons which is known to the persons who opposed it. I'm not going to analyze all those matters here. At that time, a National Council of Applied Economic Research, NCAAR, they made a study as ordered by the 13th Finance Commission. And that study came out with a report that to provide gains to India's GDP somewhere between 0.9 to 1.7%. That means the corresponding change in the absolute values of GDP over 2008-9 is expected to be between rupees 42,789 crore and rupees 83,899 crores respectively. The comparable dollar value of this is estimated to be between $18,850 million respectively. Now perhaps study was made in 2008-9. The bill was introduced promptly by the then UPA government. How many years have passed now? More than 7 to 8 years have passed. Ultimately, who is the loser in delaying it? It is the people of this country. They have lost this money. 83,890 crores, maybe 1.5 lakh crores as on today.
On an annual basis.
Annual basis. It is annual basis. And just imagine the loss to the country, to the people, in our political gamble. We do not see the interest of the people. We don't connect ourselves to the people. We talk, in fact, total 12 lakh crores. We lost it. This is how one economist in fact said that like the bankers with the micro forecasting models, In fact, is the Maurice Cowling who remarked it, that politicians only know what they need to know. Politicians only know what they need to know. This need not be much. What they need to know is enough to gain or retain power, or to remove a party from power, or to gain a power for itself. These ideas which they govern are always supplied from outside politics. I'm just quoting it because, this is Keynes economics. The big analysis was given. I think we should rise above that. I think that is the intention of the present government also. We need to rise above that. But what is the loss to the country? Who is to make out that loss to this country, which is done to the people of this country and the country? 12 lakh crores we lost in the process. Now the bills have come. Because I have limited time, so that is why I don't want to illustrate everything. Madam, I believe that I have 25 minutes time to speak.
Your party has 30.
Pardon?
Your party has
No, ultimately the time is given by you.
Yes.
In fact, I would like to deal with some details, because it's a historical decision which we are taking. In fact, preparation for implementing as it been done, to the satisfaction of the authorities concerned, whether the state or the center. And in fact, particularly small business and traders, they have to understand the nuances of the new law. Of course, it's a deliberately we avoided the Rajya Sabha, but it is claimed it is contrary to the statement made by the Honorable Finance Minister. It is the biggest step in the federal law. In the federal finances, you are the representative of the Council of States. Don't forget. Finance Minister, you are denying the right for yourself. I think the history will definitely reveal what kind of a deprivation we are doing to the federal concept and the structure of this great nation. We may be happy today because there is a absolute or a brute, I don't say brute, big majority here. I don't say bulldozing because Mr. Venkaiah Naidu said don't use that word bulldozing because of the majority. Nothing wrong. You have the right, and you feel personally that you have a right to do it. You are deprived of this Rajya Sabha, which deals with the. Otherwise, what is the point in having the Council of States? If they don't have a voice to demonstrate the federal, the assault on the federal system in this country, I think if they have some pride, I think all of them should resign, according to me. All of them should resign. Some pride left. Sorry. The Rajya Sabha members hope that they have the pride. They will think about this. Because ultimately this should not happen. It's the biggest assault on the federal structure of the Constitution of India. I don't want to expand it. There are several working groups constituted to look into the specific issues of identified sectors like the banking, finance, insurance, telecom, exports, so and so. 10 groups, yes. You are right. But there are several other very important, crucial sectors where the groups have not been formed. And in fact, there are a number of intricacies of issues which need to be dealt with. This will perhaps be the last window for thrashing out the complexities and bring clarity regarding taxation of these sectors. There are many more areas. Other day I saw a statement from the chairman of the State Bank of India. He said the tax, the intricacies of the problems are humongous among the bankers. How we are going to deal with it is another matter. I don't find any committee or a group formed to look into that problem. There is no clarity with regard to the issues like excise-free zones, special economic zones of the Northeast, many other states, backward states, SEZs, and in fact this will discriminate towards the development of these regions. I don't say that you have no heart to them, Northeast regions. You have a heart, but it's not enough to have only political heart. You must have the real heart. Look into their agonies and the problems. And in fact, what will happen to them now? You have brought in an anti-profiteering clause under GST here. They are proposed to examine whether any reduction in a business cost base or cost or tax rate due to the implemented GST is passed on to the consumer in the form of appropriately reduced rates. There is no clarity how this provision could be implemented. It's a market economy, where the demand and supply, they play the role. And in fact, Malaysian government informed industries and other concerned stakeholders regarding the implementation of this provision much in advance. You are suddenly bringing it. How it is going to, in a market economy, how you can operate it, how you can invoke it. Ultimately, then the number of people who can be put inside the jail for no reason. Somebody must have paid excess, somebody would not have, because of the ignorance of law, they could not abide by that. And GST's anti-profiteering penal provision is far too vague and draconian. And it could discourage companies from making efficiency improvements in supply chains as they are required to pass on the entire benefit to consumers. Chief Economic Advisor of our own government has made impatient plea to bring real estate under the GST net, linking it to the war against black money. The very important measure, like the real estate, which is supposed to, that is supposed to be the area which brings in generates a lot of black money. And you are just ignored it. You are not included in this. Whether any lobbies have played the game? Yes. Or innocently you could not do it, or you may be thinking of some other strategy. That's a different matter. But in the absence of a clear understanding how this provision will be implemented, proposal appears to be intrusive, that goes against the objects of ease of doing business. This will be ultimately anti-profiteering provision, will be draconian in nature. Policy should be also GST implementation policy is meant to be a self-policing act. But the present provision of the harsh scrutiny is not substantially different from the present system. Interstate movement of goods. Again, there is substantial increase in the administrative and documentation. This will increase red tapeism. This will be an impediment in business operations. And GST law states that the government may require a person transporting any consignment of goods of value exceeding a specified amount to carry with him such documents as they may prescribe in this behalf that a tax officer can intercept the vehicle at any point, any time. Yeah. What is the difference? Can create a lot of this creates a barrier with the fundamental goals of GST. It goes against the heart, soul of the GST. This is again a very important matter where we require the intervention of the finance minister. The documents prescribed for interstate government of goods may be invoice generated by vendors or interception should be an exception basis rather than a routine matter of check. And it will ultimately, this provision will also turn out to be retrograde. Entry tax is not clear with respect to the merger of these taxes with the GST. As far as the tax rates are concerned, Of course, you have already come out, but high rates will be damaging for the industry as well as the consumers. The government must resist from pursuing too many goods or services under the 18% bracket. There are too many rates. One nation, one tax. This is what everybody is made to understand.
Yes.
It's only a myth. It's only a myth which is exploded by their own provisions, even at this stage. There are too many rates, virtually 7, including exemption, lower rate, or bullion, cesses, surcharges, etc. This itself will defeat the objective of GST. That's why I say that what you have brought today, I cannot call it, or nobody can call it a game changer. It is only a one baby step forward. I don't give more credit than a small baby step forward. Not a great reform which will make a game change in this country as it is intended by rhetoric which followed with the GST provisions. Regarding the cesses, we also don't know the fate of various cesses, surcharges, additional excise duty. As this is cess, surcharge, many of these segments are the real factors to distort the taxation structure. We need a clarification. Current rate structure, a cess has been proposed on luxury and sin goods over and above the higher rate, GST rate of 28%. In fact, it is, we'll have to settle this. Once for all, there should have been some prohibition, strict prohibition to ensure that no cess, surcharge, additional excise duty will be imposed henceforth. This should have been the real intent. It should have been the genuine and legitimate intent. But I think at least, yes, this will have to be done. Taxation of self-supplies proposes all interstate movement of goods, services between two divisions of the same legal entity will be subject to tax. It will lead to significant compliance difficulties in so far as these provisions are concerned. In fact, any movement of goods and services from one state to another becomes subject to tax. Head office interacting with this production plant or distribution center is another state will now be considered to be rendering a service which would need to be valued and recorded in the books of account and then tax remitted on it. Same would apply to the marketing of or business development support provided by a group in one state to fellow team members in another state. And in fact, this requires again the refund itself is not automatic. It should have been automatic. What is that mechanism? What happened to the... Madam, ultimately I can explain to you, this would be a technological nightmare. Nothing is done to reduce that taxation. Technological nightmare. The officials implementing it are the people who are suffering this act. And ultimately all these activities will not contribute any incremental revenues to the government, as any tax payable would be fully creditable. But associated compliance procedures will increase the compliance transaction cost significantly. You cannot do it. In fact, giving a deduction, the process of deduction, and ultimately refund. Again, this provision is here. There is no ad hoc provision even to make payment, give credit. That has not happened. One more thing, very major thing which is nation has to consider very seriously. GST Council is only an extension of executive. I don't call it even an executive. It's only a coordinating body. It cannot substitute for the legislature, which remains paramount in our present constitutional structure. In fact, GST is only a coordinating body, not even an executive. Central legislation will have no power to abrogate the powers of the states. What happens to the constitutional provisions? Of course, I have already, some of our friends, our colleagues have also filed an amendment on this. In fact, this is a very serious matter. and just don't take shelter on the constitutional amendment which they have already done. In fact, as per the constitutional framework provided under Article 107, 117 of the Indian Constitution, which prescribes the legislative procedure and the legislative relationship between the Union Executive and the Union Legislature. This has been totally, mainstream has been totally cut off. And in fact, this leads to real problem of a legislative independence. As per the present wording, it appears that only the GST Council and the central government matters, as notification can be issued merely on the recommendations of the Council by the central government. This is a fundamental contradiction to the basic legal framework and legal relationship between the Union government and the Union legislature, as envisaged in the Indian Constitution. We cannot abrogate this power, as it is the basic and fundamental feature of the Constitution of India. What happens? Let us remove all those spaces. All those provisions, chapter can be removed from the Constitution of India. The chapter can be removed, even the provision, the rules and procedure of this. You don't read it. You don't read any further. Center can issue order, mandate, diktat. They have the right to do that. No discussion. Put any kind of tax. Why do you sit here? Why do you sit here? I don't know, whichever the word you want to use it. But I think the judiciary, I'm not criticizing the judiciary. When it comes to the judicial independence, they stand up. Claim that we have to protect the judicial. Is it not the duty of the judiciary to protect the legislative independence?
Yeah.
We can have an example. When Donald Trump, the president of US, on the travel ban, issued an executive order, next day itself, the federal court came and said it is quashed. We are not vigilant, either in the judiciary or in the executive. Federal court. Then they did it. I must tell you, but we don't take anything sensitive. We are not worried about it. As usual, as business as usual. Chalta hai. This is the attitude with which we all work. And ultimately what will happen? Many such provisions of the Constitution tomorrow may be abrogated by this government or any other government. You have set example today. Now the subsequent governments will follow this example. Many of these powers of the Parliament, many of these powers of Rajya Sabha, many of the powers of this Lok Sabha could be taken away or abrogated by means of some constitutional amendment or in the name of the constitutional amendment or something like that. So, this is what one need to be. Legislative independence is fundamental, right? And you have dealt with that here. Any ambiguity on this issue will lead to a hassle for the taxpayer, who will not get any relief whatsoever. I will have to file multiple forms, multiple returns, and also return multiple authorities. It is all added. This idea is not that. It has to be a simplified taxation. I would like the Honorable Finance Minister to spell out how this basic provision of tax compliance and tax reporting will be simplified from the point of view of the taxpayer. Will this bill address the long pending grievances and concern of the taxpayers in indirect taxes, free them from dual and multiple compensations? How do you calculate the slabs?
Yes.
New definition of agriculture sector in GST bill. What was the need? When the agriculture is... Yeah. New agriculture. This is a GST new agriculture tax. Will bring in agriculturists in the back door into the tax net, even as most farm produce are exempted from GST. This is also another transgression of the fundamental basic principle of Indian taxation. What are the provisions under purchase tax on food grains? Punjab, Andhra Pradesh, where proceeds are spent on beer built on infrastructure. What will happen to them? They will be deprived of it. Are you aware of this? That some of these many things have been taken away. Haryana. Mass education and awareness campaign is required to educate taxpayers. Department should function in a proactive method. Of course, you will say that we have been doing it, and when are you going to do it? Within 3 months, is it possible to do that? GSTN, whether the departments have been empowered or equipped, whether workshops have been held for taxpayers, whether the department has put in place tax assistance cells to help the taxpayers, to what extent undue powers of the tax authorities are being curbed to prevent abuse and misuse of power. Will GST usher in genuine taxpayer-friendly game? It is anti-taxpayer taxpayer regime. During the transitory period, some genuine bona fide concerns on the part of taxpayers or assessors may take place. During this period, the harsh provision of recovery, inspections, search and seizures be waived, or a lenient approach applied to that small, medium taxpayers may smoothly transit to the new regime without harassment. No safeguard. Provision will have to be made in the transition period to get an estimate of offset not availed because of ignorance. There may also be instances of excess payments made in the previous year. From point of view of state finances also, negotiation should be done with regard to the revenue losses suffered by states during the specified period after commencement of enactment. We have made some calculation about compensation, but that is not adequate at all. As I already told you, one nation, one tax has remained as a myth, and goods like alcohol, petroleum products, tobacco, which have been significantly contributing chunk of indirect taxes, with such exemption, how can tax buoyancy come out? 40% of the tax measures have been taken out of GST. More than 40%. It may be still more. And what is that transformation you are going to effect? Leaving the 40% of the tax areas outside? Of course, you may be taxing in other ways. That is a different matter. But there is no clarity how are they going to address the difficulties of taxpayers will face. It is easy to get the reimbursement. Is it easy? Reimbursement procedure itself is cumbersome. Turnover of less than 1.5 crore will be dealt with the state administration under the present provision. Center will only deal with the 10% of them. It's not clear how the categorization should be done. Again, in the case of rupees 15 crores and above, it is 50-50. State 50 and center 50. There have been, that is 1.5 less than 50 lakhs. I am talking about above that. That is 90% state government, 10% central government. Here it is more than 15 crores, 50-50. There have been a lot of disagreements on the issue. A lot of discussions have been held in the GST Council. GST debate now continues on categorization products. Is parachute hair oil or edible all one and the same? Is Kit Kat a chocolate or a biscuit? Is a Vicks tablet medicament or confectionery? For the taxpayer and the tax collector, this is much more than an exercise of semantics. Hundreds of crores of rupees ride on the exact exaggeration. Maybe a lot of corruption will get it. A lot of harassment will get it. Because ultimately that is why if you avoid all these things from the scrutiny of the parliament, everything can happen. There will be a total anarchy in the country as far as the taxation measures are concerned.
Yes.
GST debate, now there can be a turf war, 50-50 state center. Then 90%, 10%, there will be a total turf war between the state tax administration and also the central tax administration.
Please.
And in fact, even Kerala being a case in point, during a recent closed-door meeting on product categorization, Finance Minister of Kerala brought up a point highly pertinent to people of that state. Coconut oil should not be categorized as hair oil. Can it be done together? But as edible oil, he is reported to have said. Reason, edible oil and hair oil are taxed differently as the latter is not an essential commodity. But coconut is an essential commodity for many states like Karnataka or Kerala and many other states. SHOAM committee, SHOAM said that the need for proper training of the tax administration to ensure ease of doing business. IGCS bill, it may lead to higher incidence of tax in interstate trade, commerce as IGST is levied on imported goods also here. Has the government evaluated the prospect of IGST leading to cascading effect on prices and its impact on inflation? IGST will be collected and distributed among the concerned states. Will there be a fair mechanism to ensure that originating states do not suffer revenue losses, as IGST
Now,
is a
please
destination-based tax which favors the net consumer? Yeah, I am coming to it. Has the government worked out any measures to redress them? Distinguishing between central tax administration and state administration issue has to be explained. There is again going to be a, I already told you, there will be a turf war. Switching to a new indirect tax system in the middle of a financial year will bring its own subset of accounting complications. You are in a hurry. Yes, I understand. It should be. And we want that it should have been done long back. Industry circle, introduction of peak 40% tax rate in the GST bills has set the cat among pigeons. What started out as a single tax, single market dream for industry has now degenerated into 5 tax rates, a cess on top with additional uncertainty about tax rates. Just as effective excise and custom duties are lower than legally specified rates, working in a peak rate for the GST would be well justified. Administration both at the state and will be a technological nightmare, which I already said. Nation needs to operate in 17 languages.
Now
Madam.
conclude, please conclude.
Another 5 minutes. 17 languages, that means 16 plus English. What is the groundwork done in this regard? Real estate has been, as already said, it has been excluded. And with regard to many of the appellate bodies, fundamental mistake done is, it will be struck down by the judiciary. Because every tribunal should have at least 50 members from the judiciary. That has not been adhered to.
Yes.
And in fact, that is a case for, striking down by the judiciary. Banks is a problem. The income tax matter also. So you can't do it because it goes against the tenets which are laid down in the R. Gandhi case. And many other cases, even Madras Advocates Association versus income tax matter also. Though, in fact, Madam, so this is this, as I already said, this will never be a game changer.
Yes, thank
It's only a baby step.
Yes.
And the liability linkages provisions are extremely bad. There is no provision with regard to anti-inflationary. The GSTs have been withdrawn in many other countries because of the anti-profiteering and profiteering. It's also because of the inflationary measure. I'm afraid that I'm cautioning because, tomorrow same fate should not come to India. With such a best intention, this legislation has been brought about, but now we should not get into the problem because of the increased administrative complexities. Present provision contemplating in the bills will have the lot of defects, increased cost of compliance, create interest groups of lobbies, create distortion, alternately prices in unintended ways. There will be a total distortion. So I have already brought in some amendments with regard to the legislative independence.
Yes.
It has. I'll come back to it when we move that amendment. But Madam, so intentions may be good, but ultimately you are landing this country into the area of tax distortions, and there can be anarchy and a turf war between the state and also the central administration. With this, I thank you very much.
भारत के अंदर अनेक उन्नत नस्ल की गायें हैं जिनको चुरा करके ले जा करके विदेश वाले क्रॉस करा करके होलेस्टीन, फ्रीजियन, ये कौन कौन गाय बना करके फिर हम वापस लाते हैं।